Is the current version of Jalen Hurts that we're getting good enough? Short term, Gino and I agree, but long term, we disagree. We'll get into it on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louie DeBaite. I am not riding solo today. Gino Camilleri will join me in just a moment, and we're brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Today is Stock Up, Stock Down. As always, continuing to recap a 28-3 convincing win for the Birds over the New York Giants, winning 2 straight games, getting to 4-2 on the year. But as we always do in segment 1, before we get into Stock Up and Stock Down, we do a stock watch of the quarterback of Jalen Hurts. And Gino and I, we were actually talking off camera about Hurts and expectations for him for the rest of the year, for the long term. Is he playing well enough to still be the franchise quarterback? Should they change their identity because of Jalen? Like, can they win a championship as a run-first team? Like, we really got into a lot of back and forth philosophical football talk. And I thought it was an awesome conversation. It was actually before the show. So we just hit record to really continue that momentum. So I want to play that segment for you first before we get into Stock Up, Stock Down. So let's get into that conversation about Jalen Hurts coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
I think a lot of the discussion on Jalen Hurts, like, we got to stop moving the goalpost on him because we know who he is.
I'm
we
getting
know
attacked
really
just for saying that right now he is who he is. But people are like, well, he didn't turn the ball over. I'm like, yeah, of course he, like, that shouldn't be like the standard.
I don't know though. It should be. Look at Pat Mahomes. Look at Jordan Love right now.
The guy's getting $200 million. Like, I'd like to say,
I know.
Like, you can't criticize him because he didn't turn the ball over.
No, you can criticize him. You can criticize him, but you have to allow him to get the flowers when he needs it. Like yesterday, he played within the context of the offense, and Saquon Barkley. Yeah, that's all you really need of
but that's
him right
not,
now.
I want more in my quarterback. I'm paying him to be more.
Yeah, we all want to marry supermodels. Like, it's just not what it is.
But
like,
that's what you paid him. Okay, but that's fine. If that's the reality, that's what I'm saying. Then this needs to be their identity. But long term, he needs to be more, or else you have to do something.
See, I'm gonna push back against this because there's 2 guys in the NFL right now that are doing that. Like, besides that,
I think just because
Josh
the rest
Allen,
of the league, just because the rest of the league's not doing something, doesn't mean your quarterback. It's okay for your quarterback to not be elite. You're paying him to be elite.
A lot of guys are being paid to be elite. Trevor Lawrence is not being elite right now. Joe Burrow isn't being elite right now. Like, you just have to be as good.
But does that mean you just accept it? And like, so are you saying, okay, I'm saying for this year, I agree with you, Gino.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I keep saying their identity needs to be behind Saquon. Are you okay with that if this is who Jalen Hurts is year after year, not just in this weird 2024? That's my point.
If he doesn't turn the ball over and they win football games, I really could care less.
But do you think they can win a Super Bowl this way?
I think so. I mean, if the defense allows 0 touchdowns, and Saquon Barkley just continues to be what? Next Gen Stats said he reached a top speed of 21.93 miles an hour on his 55-yard run, the second fastest speed of a ball carrier this season. Like, lean into that.
There's going to be games where you have to throw the ball to win.
And I believe Jalen can do that. And it starts with not turning the ball over. Like that, yes, is it kind of babying him to a degree to start?
You're definitely babying him. Yeah.
No, I agree, but
and I'm paying the guy way more. If I'm going to baby him, then I'm going to go pay somebody less to baby.
Well, it's not your money; it's Jeffrey Lurie's money.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
But right now, the context of the offense is run through your offensive line, and Jalen Hurts cannot turn the ball over. To be a player this team can win with, that is okay. They were winning in spite of Jalen in those first 5 games. Yes. You're looking way too much at the long term could be 5 to 10 years, but long term in Philly could be 1 to 2 years.
Next year, I'm saying in the playoffs this year. I'm saying when it comes time to where they have to win because of their quarterback, that needs to be your identity eventually. That's what you're investing in.
But does it
go pay less money to have a game manager.
I mean, yeah, you can get into that discussion down the road, but right now in a playoff game, like if we're talking about this year right now, I think Jalen Hurts doing what he did yesterday would be enough to win a football game. If push came to shove, and
it was the Giants and the Browns. Like, do you think when he plays the
this
Bengals
is what I'm saying,
next week?
he's playing the schedule.
See, you're saying I'm moving the goalpost. I think you're moving the goalpost. You're
which
moving
way?
You're saying more forward. You're saying, well, like it used to be, he needs to do this, this, and this, and now it's okay because he didn't turn the ball over, and they're gonna win this way, so he doesn't need to do all this stuff. But eventually,
if they force
him
to throw it 35 times. Like we've seen him do that before. I'm not worried about that.
But when was the last time we saw him
Green Bay? Like 6 weeks ago,
he threw like 4 turnover worthy passes that were
and
he
did none of that yesterday. How many balls?
Because he was a game manager. Correct.
And that's fine, dude. And that's fine right now. Like right now, Brock Purdy is not playing to that level currently. Justin Herbert is not playing to that level. Like we could go around the league. There's two guys right now that are playing to that league. I don't like the acceptance of mediocrity at quarterback that we like. This complacency tone is just I don't love that. But for the long term. Yeah, but like we need to look at right now. Like he could be gone in Philly.
But I want to win a Super Bowl. I'm not just talking about a win against the Giants. I'm talking about for this year and next year and the year after. Like this version of Jalen Hurts, he has to be more. I don't think right now he can be, and that's why I'm saying the identity needs to be through Saquon Barkley. I think they're a better football team the way they were last year.
But like all of a sudden, like we don't need to say just because he had this referendum season where they realized that they are a run-first football team, which right now Baltimore is very similar. You love Lamar Jackson, Lou. You love what they do, and
they threw the football. They're a pass-first team last year, and they made the AFC Championship.
And then what did they do? They brought in Derrick Henry. Like we're
Lamar
two different ways
in a lot of games with his arm. Like I think I'm saying they not only need to be a run-first team because of the personnel they have, but it's also because Jalen Hurts is showing they've been trying to be a pass-first offense for the last year and a half, and they've been extremely inconsistent as a result. So that's why they need to become a run-first team like 2021.
Yes. They have to be their true self, not their ideal self.
If people say I'm nuts for saying he looks more like 2021 Jalen Hurts than the first half of last year or 2022, then I think they're the crazy ones.
I think that's fair. And
I'm not saying that's a bad player, Gino, but it's not an elite player. Then that's what I'm saying. The expectations have changed.
And I think the expectations of finding an elite quarterback, it just doesn't happen all the time now. Like
I agree.
It's maybe a Patrick Mahomes, maybe you look into a Josh Allen, but every other guy, are we getting Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew, like those days are gone. Those days are gone.
I don't know if they are. I mean, Lamar Jackson's elite. I still think Joe Burrow's elite. Caleb Williams and Jordan Love look like they're on the path of eliteness. Same with Jaden Daniel. I mean, I just don't like the acceptance of, because of the rest of the league doesn't have good quarterbacks, therefore we should accept that ours isn't that good. Like, I don't want to build my team that way.
I don't think he's not that good. I just don't think he's the player that everybody wants. He's not. The days of him battling Patrick Mahomes, like that 2022 Super Bowl is not.
But then you're not going to win a championship, Gino. Then we need a new quarterback. If
you can win with an elite run game. Like that has happened in football.
You think year in and year out they can win Super Bowls built as a run-first team? Baltimore,
the way that the league is going.
Name me a team
this was 6 years ago, I would say absolutely not.
Tell me a team that's done that in the last decade that's won a Super Bowl being a run-first team.
But Lou, the league is changing now. Like it's completely changed.
Look who keeps winning.
Look at the numbers, dude. Look at the numbers of cover six and everybody checking down and Patrick Mahomes.
Watch at the end of the year who separates themselves and wins championships. It's going to be the teams with quarterbacks.
We'll see. Okay. But I believe that Saquon Barkley.
Do you genuinely think this year is like the first year of the sign of a new league to come? Like the mold is changing, and 2024 is like day one of that.
I don't think it's day one. I think it started a couple seasons ago. And
Mahomes keeps winning Super Bowls anyway. So a run-first team is not winning
about an outlier. You're talking about a once-in-a-generation guy.
Okay, fine. My bad. Joe Burrow made a Super Bowl. The Rams won a Super Bowl because of Matt Stafford.
Has as many Super Bowls as our guy. Like, what do you can't.
But all the teams making deep playoff runs are built around their quarterback for the most part, outside of the random outlier. Okay, that's one.
Purdy? Come on.
You can say that's an outlier. Every other team is based around their quarterback pretty much, outside of the random Tennessee Titans.
And the thing is, those guys don't. Josh Allen doesn't come around all the time. Like Jalen Hurts, if he was
so
this
many
generation,
quarterbacks that have made deep playoff runs every year, and Jalen was one of those guys 2 years.
He
ago.
was. He was, but that guy is no longer here. It's just not who
So,
he
okay,
is.
yeah. So we agree on who they need to be. We agree on who Jalen is. I think we just don't agree on what you do with that moving forward. You're okay with that kind of long term of him being a good, not great player, and I'm not. That's kind of where we're differing,
I
which is fine. It's just a differing of philosophy. I think it's a fascinating
100%.
conversation. But
this
yeah,
is what happens behind the scenes too. Like in that personnel department, this is what they're talking.
And I am.
Let's get off of the offense. We have to talk about the defense, dude. They played historical yesterday.
Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is sponsored by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you place your bets for a game day and you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you want to check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. You can do it on the exact same page as your bets through FanDuel. And you're also going to get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose, when you place your first $5 bet. So bet with us at LOE3 every Friday. Gino and I, we do our player props. I took the over on Saquon Barkley scrimmage yards against the Giants. That was at 99.5. An obvious win. He crushed that bet, had 187 yards from scrimmage. So win or lose, though, bet that first $5. FanDuel is going to give you $200 back in bonus bets. We thank FanDuel for sponsoring the Locked On Eagles podcast today. Today's Locked On Eagles is also sponsored by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn helps you hire for your small business when you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They have the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. They help you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within just 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Time now for Stock Up after a 28-3 convincing win for the Philadelphia Eagles over the New York Giants to get to 4-2. And Gino, there were a lot of positives in this game. This is the first stock up, stock down we've done all year where there could be 4 or 5 stock ups each. And outside of like one area of improvement, I don't have a lot of criticism from this game.
Where a couple weeks ago after that Tampa Bay game, it felt like the end of the world and all we could find
10 downs, 1 up.
Yeah, this is one of those games where I think you have to look at all the wins and take them in stride, because this was a big game by, like you said, a lot of different people. There's maybe 1 or 2 guys on the field that perform not even at a bad level, but just like at an average level. So why would we harp on the negativity when this was a complete, outside of the first couple drives on offense, as always, a really complete game by this Philadelphia team?
And I think the biggest bright spot, of course, was the 8 sacks from the defensive line. And I want to specifically focus on the stock rising of the young defensive tackles. Specifically, Jordan Davis has played really well against the run, but when you look at getting to the quarterback, Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, and Moro Ojomo, they are making Davis's, I don't want to say stunted growth, but as a pass rusher, I feel like that's justifiable to put it in those terms. It makes his development kind of being stagnant a little bit more stomachable when you have Jalen Carter right now is the 5th highest graded pass rushing defensive tackle, according to Pro Football Focus. He's got 3 sacks in the last 2 games. Moro Ojomo is the 12th highest pass rushing tackle. And in the middle there is Milton Williams, who now went from number 15 to number 9 this week. He had the 5th highest grade of any Eagle. So if you can have those two, if you can extend Milton Williams and have Ojomo as well, a part of this rotation, and heck, even Thomas Booker had another really solid performance. Suddenly you're saying, okay, in a vacuum, yeah, we would have liked Jordan Davis to take that next step, and it's why we traded up for him, and maybe he still can do that. But if he doesn't, it's okay because we have these 4 other guys on the interior consistently getting to the quarterback.
And I don't even necessarily look at it in a negative light, because I would say that these guys are allowing Jordan Davis to almost do what he should be doing, down in and down out, and occupying those double teams and making sure the run game is as good as it is. And that was always the thing with Jordan. It was like we need to have a floor with him of what he can do really well. And then if he evolves into that unicorn like we had thought, then he would have been truly worth that pick. Now, is he worth that 13th overall pick trading up at this current point in time? I wouldn't say that, but the role he's in has been exceptional. You're not even hearing about him. That's because he's doing his job, staying in position. And the other guys, the guys that are meant to be that 3 tech where they're lined up between the guard and tackle, or even, heck, they've lined up Milton Williams as an edge player at times, and Jalen Carter has moved all around. These guys, their job is to get after the quarterback. That's what they have always drafted in these 3 tech type of players. I mean, even traded for, go back to like the Timmy Jernigan years, the Michael Bennett years. Like these are the exact type of players you've been looking for. And now are they journeyman type of players that you might have for a year or two?
Like a Malik Jackson type.
No, they're cost controlled rookie contract players who, yeah, you got to sign Milton Williams like ASAP.
I hope so. Yeah.
But Jalen Carter, you still got him for 3 years on that rookie contract. Moro Ojomo still got 2 more years after this year on that rookie contract. This is a group that is going to win you a lot of football games, not just now, but if you keep that group intact, Lou, I think they're just going to continue to grow and mold and learn each other's strengths and weaknesses and become a sustainable defensive line that Howie Roseman has invested all these assets into. And this was the idea of what he wanted to do. It's coming to fruition. It's great.
We always talk about how the Eagles stole Jalen Carter and the fact that the NFL let that guy fall to the 9th overall pick, and the Eagles still a small trade up. Yeah, we always talk about how that was just highway robbery, and it was almost a luxury for the Eagles to add this kind of player to an already just incredible defensive line specifically. But now when you look at it, like how important it needed was that pick. Because not just with Jordan Davis, being who he is as a run stopper, but not really being that pass rusher, Milton Williams' future being up in the air with his contract, and Hassan Reddick being gone, you're not having that true alpha on the edge. Getting Jalen Carter at that pick, it wasn't just like a luxury, oh my gosh, I can't believe this guy fell. We just got to go get him because you can't pass up this talent. Like, that's a huge need to have Carter be the alpha right now, because if it's not him, the other guys are looking really good, including the edge rushers, who we'll talk about in a second, but like he's the guy. It's so huge that the NFL let this guy fall.
After this season, we definitely have to do a reactive versus proactive positional breakdown of Howie Roseman. But one thing I will say is you talk about proactivity and never sitting on your hands, Lou.
Yeah.
He could have made that Jordan Davis selection and said, all right, this is what we're going to do. We invested our high pick.
We took Milton in the 3rd round. Like those are our 2 guys. Yeah, they could have.
Nope. He said, we are going to identify a blue chip prospect, somebody that circumstances outside of what he did on the football field caused him to drop a little bit, but they bring him into an environment where you talk about leadership, Lou, the way he has been playing, guys they'll buy into that, man. Like he doesn't have to be a rah-rah off the field guy that hypes the guys up, but if he's dominating double teams every single week, that's only going to make Moro Ojomo want to produce more and Milton Williams want to produce more, and Howie Roseman to identify that this luxury position that we have, it's not a luxury. It's a necessity to be 4 to 5 guys deep on the interior in today's day and age. And we talk about the evolution of the run game, Lou. These guys are more important than ever. Like these run stopping guys who can also get after the passer, you need to have multiple of them. Look at what I think Seattle's doing a really good job in what they have up there. They brought in Leonard Williams, right? And they have Draymond Jones, but they're like, oh no, we're going to go and draft Byron Murphy as well. Very similar to what Philadelphia is doing, where they're identifying that interior pass rush. Since the Super Bowl, where Tom Brady has that quote, I hate the interior pass rush. BG wins off of the guard and wins you a Super Bowl. Those guys, you can never have enough of them. And right now, you're sitting in a world where you're saying, Howie Roseman, you got to keep them in-house. How is he going to get it done? I do not know, but go and pay Milton Williams now. Don't let him hit free agency.
And he might, if this guy continues this pace, he might have to pay Josh Sweat this offseason too. The edge rushers had another incredible performance, back-to-back games where that 4-man rotation of Josh Sweat, you look at Brandon Graham, of course, even Jalen Hunt gets in on the action, Bryce Huff, Nolan Smith, like all 5 of those players have been heating up, and that's your first stock up, the edge rushers.
The edge rushers were waiting to get these sacks that always come in bunches. And you talk about getting 13 over the last 2 weeks, Lou. whatever Vic Fangio did to change and adjust this defensive line to allow these guys to play free, fast, and upfield, continue to do it. Nolan Smith, I don't think we give him enough credit.
I was losing hope, Gino, the first 3 games of the year, so this has been huge.
Oh, it's I mean, his last set of tape was beautiful. It was chef's kiss, like how an undersized player wins off of the line. And he wasn't going against Azudier, who was the left tackle that was in for Andrew Thomas. No, he was going up against the starting right tackle there for the Giants. And that speed to power rush where he keeps his elbows locked, he identifies the set point of the offensive lineman, extends his arms, pushes him back, and then Jalen Carter swoops in there for the tackle. And then he does the exact same thing and gets himself a sack. These duos, they're starting to mesh. They're starting to learn how these guys rush together, where their set points are. We talk about having the offensive line being able to be so just be a conglomerate and work hand in hand. Well, it was taking a little bit for that defensive line to do that, Lou. Like, we have to remember that this wasn't really like the starting group last year. I mean,
No.
Fletcher Cox changed a lot of things. Now these guys are playing different positions, and all of a sudden, Josh Sweat looks really good. And I think the best thing about him as a front side edge defender, they're finally setting in hard edge. He's spilling things inside. His linebackers are cleaning things up. The guys on the edge that aren't meant to be those true edge setters, and Nolan Smith and even a Jalix Hunt and a Brandon Graham, they're not being used like that. That's smart. That's how your coach is supposed to deploy players. Allow them to be the best version of themselves. Is Nolan Smith on the trajectory to be worth that 30 overall pick? It wasn't looking like it for the first probably 15 games of his career. But if you look at just these 2 last games inside of a vacuum,
That's a
and
first
turn
round
on his
pick.
last game of his Georgia tape,
Yeah.
that's first round development. That's what you were hoping for. And Jalix Hunt, his strip sack, man, like it was a free rush that he had,
But the way he flew across the field, like that's what
closed
I
down
like
space,
seeing.
got his
Yeah.
hand up to the ball. Those are just those little things you can continue to build on, Lou. To say the strength of your defense was that defensive line through and through, it gave me those Jim Johnson, early 2000, Buddy Ryan type of vibes, man. This team can win because of those guys.
I completely agree. And I think another person, and we put this guy on the sidelines, of course, not on the field as a coach, he's still a reason that they're winning football games. And he was a main reason you won this game. Jeff Stoutland, like to flip the field and go to the offense. When in doubt, turn to Stout. And obviously Saquon Barkley had a historic revenge game, and he was a main reason you dominated on the ground. But just look at 2 of the wins this year against New Orleans and New York, where you're on the road and in game, you're now without 2 of your starters on the offensive line, where that New Orleans game, you lost Lane Johnson and Mekhi Becton. This game against the Giants, you already came in without Jordan Mailata, so Fred Johnson's got to go up against Brian Burns. Then Mekhi Becton gets concussed, so Tyler Steen's got to go back in the game. No problem. Like, no Jordan Mailata, no problem. No Mekhi Becton, no problem. No Jason Kelsey, no problem. Cam Jurgens looks incredible so far this year. I mean, that pole block on the big 51-yarder to Saquon was Jason Kelsey to a T. Jeff Stoutland just always has all of these guys ready to go. Their development always works. I mean, it's just, we talk about Stout a lot in the show, but I still think he just is not praised enough. There's a reason that, 3 different Eagles head coaches have said, no, this guy's not going anywhere.
I think Jeff Stoutland and Steve Spagnuolo are 2 guys that are happy never being head coaches for the rest of their tenure. Like, they're so good in their
He's a Hall of Fame head
spots.
coach, in my
Oh, they
opinion.
had to
Or not
change
head
the
coach,
rule.
excuse me, a Hall of Fame coach. Yeah.
Yeah, for him and Dante Scarnicchia, the longtime offensive line coach of the Patriots, it's like those 2 guys revolutionized the game.
They did.
I think Fred Johnson might just be his best example, Lou. A guy who, listen to Fred talk, he was out of football, like mentally checked out of football. He's like, all right, I'm going to retire after this year. Like, this is probably it. Not only does he find Fred Johnson's love for the game again, but he gets him ready to go 2 road environments, 2 different assignments, Lou. 1 at right tackle, 1 at left tackle.
Right.
How many guys have come to Philadelphia and failed to do? Andre Dillard, like, do we forget a former first-round pick couldn't do that? But
And look
Fred
at Steen.
Johnson is doing it?
Like, even Steen, he played left tackle his entire college career, And the way he's played right guard in 2 games this year, like I'm bullish on Tyler Steen being a starter level player.
He's a starter in this league, man.
Yeah, and Becton looks great. So you have this luxury of having 2 guys there that can start. But Tyler Steen
starters on the offensive line.
Yeah,
man,
he's a starter in this league, in my opinion. So over 260 rushing yards. Jeff Stoutland, just another year where he's a reason you win games all of the time, even when things aren't going right in other areas. Yep. Gino, another coach that I think outside of Stoutland really elevated this football team. Your next stock up is, of course, the defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. I mean, you talked about the edge rushers. We talked about the tackles, putting all these guys in a position to succeed. Like that has been Fangio over the last 2 games. And what a turnaround from the first month where it felt like he was just shoving a square peg in a round hole for a while.
I'm sorry, Phillies fans, but maybe the Phillies getting eliminated from the playoffs and him focusing solely on football.
Yeah, maybe he was watching too much baseball.
Yep, he loves his Phillies, man. He's a Philly guy.
He did talk about it like every press conference.
Yep, maybe that kicked him into high gear. But no, it's a tough assignment to come into this building after what happened last year. Like, especially with that defense, so much change, and especially the first 4 weeks where you're like, is this thing ever just going to be a smooth sea? Like, is it going to be rocky waters all season long? Vic Fangio, I'm very pleased with how somebody who's been around the league as long as him said, I can't be hard-headed. Like, I have to just put my guys in the position. Like, it doesn't matter what I want them to be. It doesn't matter what Howie Roseman wants them to be or what they signed them for. I have to put them in a position to succeed. Bryce Huff might be the best example of that. Bryce Huff's first 4 weeks, they were trying to make him something that he wasn't.
Dude, we said he was a Nnamdi Asomugha, Byron Maxwell level free agent bust. Like, that's how bad it looked.
And then last game, he is responsible for multiple pressures. He was all over the quarterback. I mean, you got to talk about like assists when it comes to sacks. He was getting Daniel Jones off.
I want that as a stat, by the way. I want assists in football on both sides of the ball.
Oh, they're absolutely
like that should be an offensive line stat for sure. Like Cam Jurgens should get an assist. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, you should get half a sack if you're the guy that like pushes the pocket. You should also get like an offensive line point in fantasy if you're the guy pulling up the field. But I think the reclamation project of a lot of these guys that we were saying those first 4 weeks, like, do they even fit into the, I mean, we were questioning Josh Sweat's athletic ability and ability to play football for the longest time. And then Fangio said, no, I've done this long enough. I'm good. Let me just put these guys in a position to succeed. And the best thing that he does, Lou, is he knows when he's the alpha. The last 2 weeks, the defense was the alpha. They're not sitting in this stalemate like 2 goats getting ready to ram horns. He's like, no, I'm the shark. You're the little fish. We're coming after you, and we're getting 13 sacks. How many times were we yelling at Jonathan Gannon in games against Tim Boyle and the Jets and saying, dude, blitz this guy. Just send the house at him.
Oh, that's what I said yesterday, or me and you were having a conversation after the show. I love that finally an Eagles defensive coordinator saw a bad quarterback and say, he's a bad quarterback. I'm not going to respect it. I mean, I was so sick of watching coordinators, despite playing as Zach Wilson, still like, whoa, corners 10, 15 yards off the ball. Like, no, Daniel Jones sucks. Let's play up. Let's go get him. Like, don't make it easy on this guy. Don't give him any free yards. And that's what he's done 2 weeks in a row. And again, it's against bad quarterbacks. We'll see what happens against Joe Burrow next Sunday. That's a big next test. But I love that a coordinator finally just is aggressive and does it based on the matchup and didn't put respect on someone that I don't think deserves it.
Totally agreed, Lou. And this is a good place to find your footing, this 4-game stretch, in my opinion. I think Joe Burrow will be a good test. Trevor Lawrence will be a good test. 2 guys that are a little bit more adept at covering the blitz. But the good thing about that, Lou, Fangio was finding ways to hit home with 4. None of those sacks, according to Next Gen Stats, were actually blitzes. They only sent 4 guys. One of those defensive linemen, when Cooper DeJean got his sacks, was popping back into coverage. So if they can hit home with 4 and allow those guys in the secondary to play press man, as good as Quinion and Darius have been, like, how are quarterbacks going to find time to get the ball out of their hands if they're this quick up the field?
Stock up to Vic Fangio, stock up to Jeff Stoutland. The coaches, I would say, in those areas had a great day on Sunday in the Meadowlands. A couple more stock ups for you. Stock down as we wrap up this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. This episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I was just at Eagles Browns last weekend, got my tickets through Game Time. Great price, but I also made sure to get a great view of the seat before I bought those tickets. You can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. Game Time also has their lowest price guarantee. If you find a better price on another platform, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take out the guesswork of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Stock Up, Stock Down continues on this Tuesday edition of Locked On Eagles. So many stock ups that had to bleed it into segment 3, Gino. And I didn't want to not talk about some of these guys. Stock up to, the passing game was up and down, especially in the first quarter. And we'll talk about that to wrap up the show. But one bright spot of the passing game, and it always is number 11. It's A.J. Brown. I mean, he is the MVP of this passing game. And I said this on the post-game show yesterday. Like, I've for years now said, I think it's 1A, 1B with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I think Devontae, if he got the A.J. Brown role on another team and got that kind of target share and attention, he would be just as good. He'd be a top 5, top 10 receiver. I don't believe that take is now incorrect, but I think sometimes I downplayed A.J. Brown's impact. Like, he is, you could make the argument he's the best receiver in football. I mean, listen to some of these numbers of Brown in just, 3 games. It's unbelievable. Let me pull him up. He's averaging over 20 yards a reception. He's averaging over 100 yards a game. Let me double check here. Yeah, this is insane. He also has 5 20-plus yard receptions this year. He's PFF's number 1 graded receiver in single coverage. Jalen Hurts has a perfect passer rating when he's targeted. Teams have shown you can win without a true number 1 wide receiver. But it's just another level when you have one, especially when you have up and down coaching and quarterback play. You win because of A.J. Brown. And this passing game, it seems like an obvious statement, but it's not even close the way this unit looks with number 11 on the field and when he's not on the field.
Oh, 100%, man. And I think we're kind of revisiting those issues that we were bringing up with the offense when he was out. A lot of that has to do with 11 not being in the line and Devontae Smith not being there as well.
Right. He was also
planned to operate without either of them.
Mm-hmm.
But 11, I keep saying it, he's a different cat, man. When you're a wide receiver who is built like a tight end, but can run as fast as anybody in the National Football League, how is any cornerback? No cornerback is built to defend.
They're still not even using him around the entire field. I feel like there's still another level we could maybe get.
Yeah, get him in the middle of the field running slants. We could run probably 10 slants in a row.
That he did in Tennessee. The Eagles don't even do that.
No, it's you're so good. We're going to just throw this fade or go ball to you.
And he always catches it.
And he always catches it, man. His hands are unbelievable. His ability to play through contact is unbelievable. A.J. Brown, we are still underrating him. That stretch of, 6 games in a row last year going over 100 yards. We're already halfway there, folks. Cincinnati's secondary isn't anything to write home about. And then you got the Jags secondary. That's not anything to write home about. Who's to say he's 1 game away at the end of this 4-game stretch here from eclipsing that mark of last year? I said something when we were talking yesterday that I don't think anybody outside of Saquon has had an impact to that Terrell Owens level. And now, if you take a step back, it's AJ. AJ Brown
absolutely.
Is that guy. It's AJ Brown.
And I think I'm the biggest suspect of this, of underrating him still. And I think it was maybe in the name of hyping up Devontae Smith, but I do think I downplayed how important. When it comes to most valuable players that are not a quarterback, Gino, if you were going to give the MVP to a player that wasn't a QB, I think AJ Brown would be a top 5 candidate in that conversation.
Oh, for sure. I seen
maybe not
this year.
Yeah, maybe
a little bit tough.
But the last few years, if you're doing a combination of the past few years and what they mean to an offense, AJ Brown has as good of a debate or a case as anybody.
Yeah, look what they did without him last year.
Right.
Nothing.
It's just not
absolutely nothing. It's it's such a crazy give and take when he's in and versus when he's out. And
yeah.
I don't want to know a passing offense where 11 is not involved.
I agree. Your final stock up is the rookie Cooper DeJean, yet another strong performance in the slot. But and by the way, the fourth highest graded coverage defensive back through the entire NFL the last 2 games is Cooper DeJean. But Gino, also like his punt returning on Sunday was incredible.
And the reason I brought up Cooper DeJean was that this is now probably the second time he has Wally pipped somebody on this Philadelphia.
I was going to say, Gino, our only stock down player-wise, we have to say is Britain Covey, right? Only because of how good DeJean looked.
Only because of that injury. And those who are unfamiliar with the Wally Pipp story, Wally Pipp was a former New York Yankee. All of a sudden, he's out for a day because of an injury. And who steps in? The late, great Lou Gehrig. And Wally Pipp never got his job back. Cooper DeJean did that with Avonte Maddox. No
Britain
fault
Covey, by the way, is probably as tall as Lou Gehrig and Wally Pipp.
Yeah, without a doubt, he's about my size as well. But I think he took Britain Covey's job like as good as Britain Covey was as a punt returner.
Yeah.
The play strength he plays with to break multiple tackles in the vision for somebody in the secondary. This kid, how is he not a first-round pick? I
have no idea.
No sympathy for teams that don't know how to use good football players. Zero. Because the Eagles found a way to get him on the field in multiple different facets. 2 out of the 3 phases he's being used right now. And he's doing an excellent job at it.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know if it's because teams didn't know how to use him, like how he'd project to the next level and didn't want to deal with that. But I find that exciting, Gino. Instead of like, I think some teams are like, is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? Is he a corner? Like, we don't know what he does, so we don't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting to me because that shows he has a versatile skill set and I can use him in so many ways. I just think it's a closed-minded mentality. And I think that might be why Coop fell to the second round, or just that there were so many offensive players, there just wasn't enough picks. But I do think it has to do with some teams just didn't know how to use him, and Vic Fangio is using him perfectly.
I think this whole Eagles coaching staff is just finally figuring it out that if guys are good at something, just let them do it.
It feels like they understand their roster. I think so many times in years past, they don't understand their own players.
I want to look at one player who is probably not going to get talked about by many Eagles outlets, but Ben Van Sumeren. He was wearing number 57 the other day. How many of the times was he playing fullback that Saquon had a big run? Just understanding that you can do that with like this, you hit it right on the head, Lou. Like that lack of closed-mindedness is doing wonders for this Eagles team right now.
I had to like double check that was Ben Van Sumeren out there.
He wasn't wearing 47.
Yeah,
like,
I'm like,
what the hell's that number?
I haven't seen an Eagles like a fullback out there since like Owen Schmidt in like 2010 after Leonard Weaver went down. So yeah, I mean, even BVS making plays, just everybody, it feels like they understand their role and the coaches understand the strengths and the weaknesses of this roster for sure. One final stock down, Gino. I think, of course, the pass game coaching. The first quarter is just, it's unacceptable. Yet again, this team is not scoring in the first quarter, and that is so much to do with coaching. I think Dan Orlovsky might have said this. He put it best. The first quarter is all about coaching, and the fourth quarter is all about the players. And I think that's so true. And again, like Kellen Moore keeps doing things early on in games, like once, and then he just goes away from it. The first play, it's an under center play action pass. A.J. Brown, Tennessee Titans, over the middle, boom, first down. And then they just never do it again. And they kind of go back to the same old offense. And that is so frustrating because they have it. Like they have the ability to do these different things. But then I don't know why they're just so, I don't complacent might be the right word, of why they just throw it all out the window. If
there was any area of closed-mindedness, on this team, I would think it's the passing game, especially early on. And just the lack, this discussion of like Jalen Hurts doesn't like to throw over the middle. There's nothing over the middle. Like short intermediate pass game over the middle is non-existent.
They're not giving him the option to do that. They're pushing him to do it.
Look at the route spread of this team, dude. It's hitches, goes, and fades. Just look at the statistics. Yeah. There's one account on Twitter, and I'll retweet it at some point this week, that does an update of like what is the distribution of the routes. The Eagles are leading the league in hitches, fades, and goes.
And again, I know that's like the strength of your team, but you have to like hit in other areas of the field and do other things to keep defenses guessing.
Yes. The middle of the field is the highest percentage area where you can work two-way goes. When you're on the sideline, you only have one way. There's only one way to release. It's not to the sideline. Like you're limited in what you can do in the middle of the field. Like, I think that's why Devontae Smith's workload has kind of been down. Like, get him back to working the middle of the field, please.
Right.
Like, let's do that. They need to, because you can exploit that yards after the catch. Like, these one-on-one situations outside, if they make the catch, the sideline's right there for the defender. You just have to pin him against the sideline.
Correct.
In the middle of the field, it's the wild, wild west.
I think that's the most impressive part of the Eagles leading the league in explosive plays this year, Gino, is the fact that they are so not participating in the middle of the field, and yet they're still leading that area.
It's low percentage throws to the outside, and they're still able to convert. Like, what's going to happen when you hit these high percentage throws? Like,
it's yet again about the coaches elevating already elite personnel and like elevating them even more.
Yep. Because the way that they are playing in the fourth quarter, it has to give you some positivity. Like, we can do a lot of things with this team, man. And like, seeing Jalen Hurts is just poised at like changing plays and like checking out of things and being willing to throw 4th and 3 bombs to AJ Brown because you have that confidence. Like, don't tell me he's not confident to throw over the middle of the field.
We saw he could. We know he can do it. Yes, is he not as comfortable throwing over the middle as the sidelines? Absolutely, and they're playing to that strength. But we have seen over the last 3 years that he can do it. He led the league in tight window passing yards in 2022. So we know it's in his. He's capable of doing that. The coaches just need to, and I said this last week, they just need to push him more to do it, and they are just not doing that. So I think, as you mentioned, if there is one area of complacency with this team right now that's very open-minded and looking very creative, it definitely would be the passing game.
Without a doubt. But if that's the worst thing that we have to worry about, and we kind of know what our biggest fault is moving forward, the Eagles, they've kind of dialed in some of those areas that we thought were weaknesses. If they can just continue to do this, Lou, where each and every week it's like a new plan. Like, you're not trying to build the house all in one day. Like, this week we're going to work on the bathroom. This week we're going to work on the kitchen. Like, you got to go into that kitchen and cook some stuff up. You got to get that kitchen working order, because the rest of the house, it's almost a finished product, Lou. Like, this is kind of what the identity of this team is. Run the ball, stop the run, be really good taking away the pass. We can hit the quarterback, but what is our pass game? It can't just be to the sideline. But if we can don't dial that in, who's to say that this team can't continue to lead the league in explosive plays and be even that much better as an offense?
And they'll probably need it this Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals. A big challenge coming up with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on Sunday. We'll cover that game and more Wednesday through Friday right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening. And let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.